So welcome everyone. I show 10 o'clock. I am going to mute everyone manually. If you are doing video, we would ask that you just simply turn it off today, unless you're presenting. That way it will reduce bandwidth loads. Let me start. We'll actually turn some things on here in just a second. But again, we appreciate you joining the Davis County Amateur Radio Club's April 11th meeting. I apologize, the topic today has changed. There was a scheduling conflict. We will have Kevin Barjunbrick, who will be doing Storm Spotter Skywarn training next month, so May 9th. And again, we apologize. Today's topics will be, let me pull these over. So we are going to talk about repeater etiquette today, simplex and net etiquette, and we'll do a review of the club repeaters. And so we're excited to do that today. We apologize that there was a change in the schedule. To get started here, let's do some welcomes. I'm going to go ahead and unmute once I find where my muting went. Where did that go? It's interesting on Zoom when you change something, things move. So let me do this. I'm going to unmute everybody for a second, unless you've manually muted, which is fine. Do we have any new club members that have joined since our last meeting? If you'll check your microphone, don't feel shy. Go ahead and give us your name and your call sign if you're a new club member since our last club meeting. Are there any new amateur radio operators who are participating today? Go ahead and give us your name and your call sign. Hearing none of those, has anybody upgraded since our last? I think it might be hard to be doing testing, so it's probably not even applicable. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. We will allow you to text. If you have questions, feel free to go ahead and text the moderator, myself. There's also a group chat feature that you can use as well. So again, we welcome you today. Let's make this full screen here. We're doing a quick calendar review. We're going to talk a little bit about repeater etiquette. And again, our Skywarn spotter presenter will be at our May 9th meeting. So we apologize for the change in topics. We will have, if they're still on by the time we get there, Mike Groves and Joan, our ARL coordinator, or I'm sorry, our ARES coordinator, also talk a little bit about etiquette as we get after the repeater etiquette, and then we'll also talk about a quick overview of our club repeaters. So what's coming up? So May 9th will be our Storm Spotter Skywarn training with Kevin Barjunbrick with the National Weather Service. We appreciate the fact that he's accepted to do that. And again, we apologize that the meeting today got changed on you. In June, we are expecting to have our club meeting. I suspect May will again be on Zoom, but we'll find out. June, we should have our field day preparation club meeting. Field day is set for June 27th and 28th. It's currently still on. Anybody who was looking forward to the Hill Air Force Base Air Show, that has currently been canceled. And it will occur again in their normal cycle, which I think is every other year. In July, we're looking forward to a month of service, and those who would like to assist Gary and 7DND with the Bountiful Handcart Days Parade, that'll be July 17th. As we look at August, we'll have our club picnic. The first Saturday, I believe in August, we're looking at doing a ham fest. Again, we'll give you more additional information on the location, which will be in Centerville on the time, but here will be an opportunity to come and Elmer other hams. And we will set up a number of different stations that people can participate in. One of those will also be a hotspot type event. You can put it together and get it programmed during the Elmer Fest. The club will pay half the cost of that device, and we will have a sign up prior to that. So you can pay your money and then we'll get you the device. And then in September, we're looking forward to the September club swap meet. And that takes care of our calendar events. I'm going to go ahead and unmute. Is there any updates to the calendar, or does anybody want to make any changes or additions to that?
Is that a club swap meet?
Yes, in September, there will be a club swap meet in Bountiful.
Look at the spelling on the screen.
Oh, yeah, it'll be a swamp meet.
I'm not bringing an alligator.
All righty.
KFIBD.
And spell check didn't catch that. What's up?
It's a good word.
Yeah, it works great.
Real word. This is Joe. Yeah,
Go ahead,
this
Joe.
is Joe. The June VE session is still up in the air. We don't know if we'll be able to have access to the venue there at Clearfield for giving exams. And we don't know if we're going to have a class before that either. So we're just stay tuned. We'll get news out to you if we get a break in the West week. And there is a new 5YI remote testing protocol that has come out. They tested it and it worked well. So I'm signed up to where we could possibly do remote testing where we don't have to be in a room with people.
Whether he comes on the video or not, I don't know. Yeah, but at least you can listen.
Yeah, stay tuned on that.
This is Gary.
Thank you, Joe. It's a number of people have just joined. We appreciate you joining. Please mute your microphone. We'll actually mute everybody here in just a second. In fact, we'll go ahead and do that now. For those who just joined,
This is Gary.
go ahead, Gary.
Okay, I've had a number of people that have signed up on PayPal on the club website. It's automatic. I'm making all of the necessary things that are doing. I'm keeping the records, updating the books, and all is well. And if you haven't contacted me with your shirt size, the LDS Church is still taking church sizes, and I have to turn that information in on Thursday. You might have a free shirt and not have a parade, so that might all work too. But if you haven't told me about your shirt size, please do, and they are running small. So please send me that information at your earliest convenience. That's all I have here. Back to you, Greg.
Thank you, Gary.
That's a good question.
All right, for those who just joined, and it looks like we still have a few more that are joining, we'll admit all of those. Today's topic was changed. We will have our Skywarn NWS training next month, May 9th. Today we will be talking about repeater etiquette, if we can get there. So with that, we're going to jump right in. I am watching the participant list. We do have a few people that are still joining, and we welcome everybody today for our club meeting and training. So let's just jump into repeater etiquette. So what is repeater etiquette? What do we do? What does all that mean? We're going to start out with starting a QSO via a directed call. So a QSO is a contact. We're doing a contact with another person. There are two main ways by which we do a QSO. One is via direct call and one is via monitoring. And we'll actually talk about the monitoring here in just a second. The directed call is where one amateur calls another amateur individually. So I want to talk to my buddy. So what happens here? This would be such as N7D&D from K7UHP. In this case, N7D or K7UHP is looking for one particular individual, and that would be N7D&D. In general, it's not an invitation for anyone other than Gary, N7D&D, to return the call. However, if N7D&D doesn't answer the call, then a new unit might just clear off by giving his call sign, such as K7UHP clear, or may call for another station by saying K7UHP clear and listening. The and listening and monitoring implies they are interested in hanging around to have another QSO with someone else who might be listening. Listening and monitoring don't mean you are listening to somebody else's conversation. They mean you're listening for other people who may want to call you and start a new QSO on the repeater. Likewise, just saying your call by yourself with nothing else is also a little meaningless. So if you were to say K7UHP, people listening wouldn't know if that means you're monitoring for calls, whether you were testing, or whether they missed the call sign of a party you were calling. So be concise, but be complete. So that's how we start a QSO with a directed call. Now what happens if we start a QSO via monitoring call? So if the repeater's not in use, simply stating your call sign followed by listening or monitoring, or CQ, implies you're listening to the repeater and are interested in having a contact or QSO with anyone else. Calling CQ on the repeater is generally not common. However, a simple K7UHP listening will suffice, and there's certainly no reason why you can't call CQ. Now, there's no need to repeat the listening message over and over and over again as you might do when calling CQ on high frequencies. However, once a few minutes should be more than sufficient, and if someone hasn't answered after a few minutes, or after a few tries, it probably means there's nobody around. Avoid things like, is anybody out there? Or is there anybody around on frequency? It sounds like a bad sci-fi movie. However, we do hear that occasionally. So let's keep going. And what happens if we want to join a QSO that's already in progress? If there's a conversation taking place which you would like to join, simply state your call sign when one user unkeys. This is the reason for having a courtesy tone, which I believe we have on our repeaters. This allows other users to break into the conversation. One of the stations in that QSO, usually the station that was about to begin its transmission, will invite you to join, either before making his own transmission, or sometimes following his transmission, they'll repeat your call sign to go ahead. Don't interrupt the QSO unless you have something to add to the topic at hand. Interrupting a conversation is no more polite on a repeater than it is in person. So if we do an interrupt on a QSO and we need to make a call, this changes things a little bit. So if you need to make a directed call to another amateur, but there's already a QSO that's taking place or going on, breaking into the conversation during the courtesy tone interval by saying, call please, K7UHP. One of the stations will allow you to make your call. If the station you are calling returns your call, you should quickly pass traffic to them and relinquish the frequency to the stations who are already in that QSO. Please don't get into a full QSO in the middle of someone else's, but if you need to break in and make a call to someone briefly and pass a message on, please do so. If you need to speak with a party you call for a significant length of time, ask them to either wait until the current QSO has cleared or ask them to move to another repeater or simplex channel to continue the conversation. Now we have a couple more coming. So what does it mean on a roundtables or turning it over? So you've probably heard people mention roundtables. When more than 2 amateurs are in a QSO or having a conversation on the repeater, it is often referred to as a roundtable discussion. Such a QSO usually goes in order from amateur A to B and then to C, sometimes to D and E, and eventually back to amateur A again, and they do this circle. To keep everyone on the same page, when any one amateur is done making a transmission, they turn it over to the next station in sequence, or out of sequence if so desired. It's not so stringent that you have to know that process. Without turning it over to a particular station, when there are multiple stations in the QSO, nobody knows who's supposed to go next, and there ends up at times being dead silence, or one of the problems is that several stations may talk at the same time. At the end of the transmission, turn it over to the next station by naming them or giving their call sign, such as, and that's a go ahead, Joe, or, and that's that, go ahead, XYZ. If it's been close to the 10 minutes, it's a good time to ID give your call sign as you say go ahead to the next station. I'm going to take a quick pause here. Based on what we have just mentioned, so starting a QSO via a directed call, starting a QSO that's already in progress, or starting a QSO while you're monitoring a call, are there any updates to this at this time? And then we're going to talk about a couple of other things.
87MG.
Go ahead, Mike.
In any of those situations, it's also proper to, when you're making a call to another station, always call using their call sign first and your call sign last. And that works with either making a QSO or passing it, or even using tactical call signs. Your call sign always comes last.
Perfect. Thank you.
On a round table, it always helps to have somebody kind of keep a rolling list, and each individual can kind of keep up with who's next in the order of things. Just jotting down call signs or names, that sort of thing. KC7RF, back to Ned.
Thank you. Paul, we appreciate that. So as mentioned, it's usually who you're calling and then your call sign. Of course, nobody will beat you over the head if you actually do it backwards. And this is why we're having this, is these are best practices. Call the station that you're going to call and then give your call sign as a secondary follow-up. So what does it mean to ID and who's who as we're getting into this? So as we are looking at the FCC regulations, you must always identify at 10-minute intervals and at the end of your transmission. If you are making a test transmission or calling another party, this is a one-way transmission. Since it has no length, as there are no QSOs taking place, you should identify each time you make a call or a test transmission. Let me mute all these for just a second, and then we'll open it up again in just a second. When identifying yourself on another party or parties, or in making a directed call, your call sign goes last. As an example, if I want to call Gary in 7DND, then K7UHP. So if we were to do this, it would be in 7DND from K7UHP. And that would be another way to remember it, just add the from in there. There is no need to identify each time you make a transmission, only once every 10 minutes. You do not need to identify the station with whom you are speaking, only your own call sign. But it is generally polite to remember the call of the other station. Avoid phonetics on FM unless there's a reason for using them, such as the other station misunderstanding your call sign, or when phonetics are needed, stick to the standard phonetic alphabet. Now what happens if we're doing a demonstration? From time to time, an amateur may want to demonstrate the capabilities of amateur radio to another non-amateur. The typical way to do this is to ask for a demo, such as K7UHP for demonstration. Anyone who is listening to the repeater can answer them back, usually telling the calling party your name, call sign, and location, and what they are looking for, not a lengthy conversation. Someone doing a demo may ask for stations in a particular area to show the range of amateur radio communications, such as if the calling station is in the Quaconis, they may ask for any stations in another particular area, so Davis County. So I might say I'm in Centerville, and you may indicate that you're in Layton or another part of the county, or even someplace up in Weber or Salt Lake counties. This makes it more interesting for the demonstration and allows the others who are listening as part of that demonstration to see that radio amateur communications does have some distance to it. Let's talk a little bit about signal reports. If you're unsure how well you are making it into the repeater, do not kerchunk the repeater, and we hear that quite a bit. Anytime you key up the repeater, you should identify, even if you are just testing to see if you're making the machine. K7 UHP test is sufficient. Do not use the repeater as a target for tuning or aiming antennas, checking your transmitter power, etc. Use a dummy load where appropriate or test on a simplex frequency. If you need someone to verify that you are making the repeater, ask for a signal report, such as K7 UHP. Can someone give me a signal report? Radio check is a term most often used on citizens band. Signal report is what most amateurs ask for. Let's talk a little bit about language. Aside from some of the technosyncrasies inherent in amateur vernacular, use plain conversational English. The kind of English that would be suitable for primetime television, not R-rated movies. Avoid starting or encouraging conflicts on the air. If a topic of conversation starts to draw strong debate, change the subject. Avoid radio ease lingo whenever possible. CB has its own language style, and so does amateur radio. But the two are not the same. Many of us join amateur radio for those reasons. Amateurs have names, not personals. Although many new hams have graduated from the CB ranks, let's try to keep CB lingo off the amateur bands. When visiting a new repeater, take some time to monitor before jumping in to get a feel for the type of traffic and operating mannerisms of that particular repeater. Some repeaters are very freewheeling in that there are people jumping in and out of a conversation constantly. Others primarily have directed calls on them and discourage rag chewing. Others are member exclusive repeaters. Listen before you talk. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. So do take and listen to the repeater. And we have so many repeaters around here, it's always a good idea to listen to them and figure out who's on there. And then feel free to join them. Let's talk about emergencies. If there's a QSO going on, break into the conversation with the word break or break for priority traffic. Do not use the word break to join in a QSO unless there is an emergency. All stations should give immediate priority to any station with emergency traffic. And I think that goes without saying. Occasionally we get these malicious interference signals. If there is malicious interference, such as kerchunking, touch tones, rude comments, etc., do not acknowledge it. Continue the QSO in a normal fashion. If the interference gets to the level where it is impossible to carry on the QSO, simply end the QSO as you normally would. There are many of us in the club who certainly try to find the malicious interference, and that is something you can do either on another channel or through phone calls, but it's best just not acknowledge it, and in most cases it does go away. Down to our last one, and we're going to open this back up again. How about the power? Use the minimum power necessary to complete a QSO. However, the minimum power necessary doesn't just mean you are barely tickling the repeater receiver squelch. If someone says that you are noisy, increase power or relocate to take whatever measures you can to improve your signal. Continuing to make transmissions after you're being told your signal is noisy is inconsiderate to those listening. The amateur radio manufacturers continue to come up with newer, smaller handheld radios, many with power levels well under a watt. Many new amateurs start out with a handheld radio as their first rig. Although convenient, they aren't the most effective radios in terms of performance. Without a good external antenna, operating a handheld radio indoors or inside a car is going to result in a lot of bad signal reports. A couple of things you can do is upgrade radios, get a better antenna, or even use an external antenna where possible. I'm going to take another pause. Let's open this back up. I'll unmute everybody and any other conversations or comments based on our etiquette up to this point.
This is Rick, W7BQ.
Go ahead, Rick.
One other thing I wanted to mention that's always a good idea, and this is true on any frequency, but especially on repeaters, is to keep your conversation short and on key in case there is a break, and also so the repeater does not time out.
Thank you, Rick. It needs to be said that most of our repeaters have a timeout between 2 and 3 minutes. So you say, what's a timeout? If you don't hear the beep at the end of a conversation and you key up as soon as somebody else is finished, the repeater doesn't have a an opportunity to reset on the timer. And so what happens is it will time out. So if the repeater was set for 180 seconds and I key up right in the, as soon as someone finishes, it may not have an opportunity to start the timer again. And when it hits that 180 seconds, it will time out and take a pause. Now the repeaters are all configured a little differently. Some of the repeaters might be off for 10 seconds. Other repeaters may be off for a minute before they allow people to have a conversation again. And this is to help prevent the burnout of the PA that's within the repeater. So thank you for that. That's always a good one to have in there as well.
87 MG.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, as far as power goes, if you're operating on an HT, it's going to be very rare occasion that you're not using high power all the time. It's the lowest power setting on most mobiles is around 5 watts, and that's around the highest power you're going to get off of a handheld. So unless you're in the next room with the other party, don't switch it off a high power.
Perfect, thank you. I know Joan's on here. Joan, did you want to add anything to any of what we've discussed on repeater etiquette in regards to our nets that we do with Aries?
FXS.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to add that, well, I haven't put it on there yet. I will put on the brake tags that we went over on the net a couple weeks ago. I will put that on the website. I haven't done that yet.
Drop off and go back in.
I'll add some in there that are not frequently used, some more infrequently used brake tags. As far as that, I think you covered everything fairly well.
Thank you, Joan. And we appreciate all the work you do for our Thursday evening Aries nets. So I wanted to cover real briefly, if I can mute this real, I can hear some noise. So we'll go ahead and just mute everybody for a second. As we continue on here, these are the repeaters that we have here in Davis County that are sponsored by the Davis County Amateur Radio Club. These are all open to all club members and any other licensed amateur ham radio, and we encourage these to be used. Our most popular repeater, and one that everybody is most familiar with, is the Antelope Island repeater on 147.040 with a positive offset, meaning you transmit at 147.640. It does have a PL tone in and out. We do suggest that you turn the tone, the 123.0 PL tone, on for both transmit and receive. The reason we suggest this repeater is a fusion repeater, meaning it can do Yaesu digital conversations. Now the repeater does have AMS mode, which is automatic mode switching. And so it will automatically switch between conventional analog signals and the fusion digital. We also have the Antelope Island UHF repeater. Again, you'll notice on here that it has a different PL tone. It does have a PL required to get into the repeater, but it also transmits out. Again, we suggest that when receiving so that you can block out the digital transmissions that might happen on that repeater if you don't have a digital radio. The 449.925 repeater that is in Bountiful is a link and used heavily on Thursday evenings to the 147.42 simplex, which is what we use here in Davis County for ARES, the Amateur Radio Emergency Services. So that has a PL tone of 100, and it is frequently used throughout the week. And again, if you only have a VHF radio, you can transmit on 147.42 and it will come out on the 449.925 and vice versa. Anything that the UHF side hears will come out on the VHF side. In addition, there is a little used repeater in West Kaysville. It's 449.700. It is active. We do have a 6-meter repeater that is currently down. If you are a packet person, 145.070 is available for packet use. And then we have a couple of D-Star repeaters frequencies. I'm not sure if these are actually up and running, but they are on the website for those who might have a ICOM D-Star system. And lastly on the list here is our 449.875 repeater on Shepherd Peak up by the radar dish just to the south. That also is a fusion repeater. It also has wires X, meaning you can use a Yaesu radio in the digital communication mode and pull up other stations around the world. I might mention that the Antelope Island, the 447.200, also has wires X, and we'll update this page to reflect that that's also wires X connected. There is a difference to the Shepherd Peak repeater, and that is that it uses a digital tone known as DCS, so it's 051. Again, that is both on the transmit side and the receive side on an analog signal, and that way you will block out and not have to listen to the digital noise from Yaesu's fusion. That is what I had prepared. I'm going to open it up. There's a lot of options for people. If you're a new ham, we do have a list of frequencies. I can't remember if we posted it on the repeater or on our web page, but there is a list of, I believe, 25 suggested frequencies for new hams, which list all of these repeaters and a few others that are around here as well. So with that, let me open this back up for any conversations or comments to this. We'll take any questions, and then we will close our meeting today.
W70YR, Roger with a question.
Go ahead, Roger.
Back on the roundtables that you were talking about, is there a limit how many people you should have on a roundtable so that you don't get everybody confused as to who's in there?
That is a great question on the roundtable, and I'm not aware of any limit. I've heard quite a few people. The challenge that comes along with the roundtables is remembering or trying to remember who's next. When they call it a roundtable, it usually goes in a circle between stations, but the more you have on, at least in my brain, the harder it is to remember who's there, and you will hear that occasionally it may go to a different person, and then people try to remember who else it should go to, and sometimes if you have a really large group, you may not be able to include everybody, but you can certainly try. So there's not.
Thanks.
KC7RF.
KC7RF, go ahead, Hall.
A couple of comments. One, there's on HF on Sunday mornings, we get together with what grows to be a fairly good roundtable. And there's usually one or two of us that will keep a running log. In fact, one individual has made up of the regulars, made up little magnetic chartboard to keep track of who's next. And a couple of comments. One comment, maybe we can change the spelling of West Kaysville.
You unmuted, or I guess you wouldn't unmute.
Yes.
And
yes, we can get that
Turn
changed.
up the volume on your computer.
okay, I can talk.
Gary, you're not muted.
Okay.
He is now.
Okay, one other thing, on roundtables or long discussions, if you
dropped out, Hall.
Yeah, I don't see him on the list. Did he just drop off?
okay, it was muted somehow. Can you copy me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Check your batteries.
That's a good one. Yeah, a comment on long roundtables or long discussions on repeater. If you're all in simplex range, then move to one of the simplex frequencies to free up the repeater, just as a matter of courtesy. And Greg, you mentioned listen for the courtesy tone at the end of a transmission when you unkey. But unfortunately, we don't have courtesy tones on our repeaters anymore, at least that I'm aware of in the club repeaters. KC7RF, back to net.
Thank you, Gary. Any other comments?
K6QJU.
Go ahead, John.
I just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, regarding the EPI snack, I would appreciate it if everyone would learn the phonetic alphabet. I think most of us know it, but there's a few that maybe are newer that still don't know it. One easy way to learn it is just to get the list and get a paragraph or whatever and just go through each letter and say it phonetically. So I would like to have everybody have the ability to do that because that can be very important in an emergency. And also, what was it? Can't remember what else I was going to say. I'll think of it in a minute.
They're just having some training. Talking about radio etiquette and, well, I'm not muted.
Yeah, you're not muted. Did you have a question? Joan, anything else?
Not that I can think of right now.
All right. And I see on our group chat, there's a couple of dates that I probably have confused. We'll make sure those are all updated on the calendar so we have those correctly. Before we end today, we had 78 participants signed up. We have 42 currently connected. We do want to do a random drawing of sorts and give 2 lucky people who've participated today a gift card for our club store. Now, unfortunately, you can't use that today. Hopefully it will be here in the near future, but we do want to give you something for participating today. And also, Larry, are you still available to show the website real briefly?
Sure, I can do whatever you want.
Okay, so before we do that drawing, I'm going to turn some time over to Larry. He's our webmaster. He's agreed to take just a few minutes and show us what we can do with the website and how we log in and manage some of our components there. So with that, let me drop off my sharing. And it's available for you, Larry, if you want to pull that up. And then if you'll text me those 2 names, we will give those out right after you're done.
Greg, did you want me to take a couple of minutes?
Yes, actually I do, if you want to go next. Sorry.
Oh, either way.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I'm not sure how to.
So right in the middle of your screen, there's a share screen, and you can click on that and pick which of your screens you want to share, or even what program is currently running.
All right, I was just going to get the speaker view, but this will work. Just a couple of things, especially with simplex channels. We have no protection on simplex channels like repeaters. Our popular ones that are earmarked for Davis County, 14742, 14757, 145.75, 145.77. And there is no guarantee that those will be available. They will become available only because of a gentleman's agreement that we have with surrounding areas, that they will be our go-to frequencies in case there's an emergency. But other than that, they're available all the time for licensed amateurs, can use any simplex frequency at any time to talk with other hams. Touch briefly on malicious interference. We had some on the net Thursday night that you probably heard. Mm-hmm. I was actually monitoring it on the input of the 449950 repeater and could hear it at my location at about an S3. But if everyone would just, without saying anything, go to the input frequencies of some of the repeaters that are tied to the net and see if you can hear them. If no one else could hear him, then I know he's somewhere close in Layton with a weak signal. If someone hears him up north stronger, then we can at least narrow it down to what location he's coming from. Tactical call signs, let me just do a really brief thing. When you're out in the field on an event or an emergency or a simulated emergency, we often will assign tactical call signs. Davis Hospital, Layton IHC Hospital, Fire Station 51. And you would use those in place of your amateur call sign for initiating conversations. A Fire Station 51, this is Davis Hospital. And nowhere do you need to use your amateur call sign until the very, very end of your QSO. And normally in these events, your QSOs will not last 10 minutes. So when you're done, just sign off. This is KD7MG. You don't have to say that I'm at Fire Station 51 unless you want to. And then finally, I just finished writing a program. I'm actually completing it. And it will find amateur radio operators in a given zip code or codes, and scraping the FCC database and a few other places to get names and addresses. So if you're interested in finding out amateur radio operators in your area, let me know, and I'll run this program for you. It doesn't take very long. There are over 500 hams in Layton, in the 2 zip codes that cover that area. I was pretty impressed by those numbers, and we're going to start working with some of them and maybe get them radioactive. Any questions? That's all I have.
Mike?
Yes.
KD7, K5BD, it's David. Yeah, I was able to do that just simply on the FCC site. I literally bumped into it on which fields to enter, and it cranked out the 500 in Layton and the 400 in Kaysville.
But you won't get addresses. You only get a name and call sign and things like that.
No, it also produced addresses. Let me talk with you offline on that. I'll try and dig up the result that I downloaded. I believe it was a spreadsheet, saved it as a spreadsheet, but I was able to get all that straight from the FCC site.
Okay, well, that'll be helpful. That's all I have. So on roundtables, you don't have to remember everyone's call sign in the QSO, just the person who's next after you. If you remember that call sign, you're going to fit in just fine.
Thanks for the tip. That's exactly right. Any other questions for Mike? Larry, if you want to jump on and show us the website real fast and take a few minutes, and then when he is done, don't log off yet. I have 2 names here that we'll call out for winners, and we'll send you what you've won. You'll be able to get these at the bookstore, at our club store, once we are back in session here in a month or 2. Go ahead, Larry.
Hi, there's just a couple of things that I wanted to point out real quick about our websites. First thing is that we do have 2 websites. We have the public-facing website that has general announcements and signups, like we signed up for today's meeting, that kind of thing, things that are general for the whole world to see. And then we have our membership website that allows for updating of contact information and also to pay your dues and that kind of thing. So I want to just real quick show a couple of things that have come up in other meetings so that you know where to find them and how to get to them. So this site right here, this is our public-facing website. It's DCARC.net. And across the top, we have a wonderful Contact Us. I'm often asked how to get things added to the website. Well, here's how you do it. So if you have a question about membership, you go to membership. If you have something that you want to send to the club leadership, that's Greg and Joe and Craig and Gary, you got a link right there to be able to send them in.
The Sky Warren thingy that was going to be today is next month.
Someone's on.
They changed it, so.
Go ahead, Larry. I muted him.
Okay, and then if you have something you would like to put on the calendar, we've got a form just for that. Please be as descriptive as you possibly can with this, because I just copy and paste right to the calendar. So if you don't have the information there, the people that are looking at the calendar won't have it either. And the last one is for anything else, website questions, bugs, links you'd like added, or if there's a page that needs to be updated, please provide that information right here. All of these contact pages can be found under Contact Us. So that is our public site and what has come up. The other site that we have is hosted by Ham Club Online, and they take care of our membership for us. If you've never logged into Ham Club Online, what you do is you go to hamclubonline.com and click the link for Forgot Password. Put in your call sign or your email address, and it will send you the links to be able to reset a password or to set up an account. We do not have, as the club membership, we don't have the ability to reset your password for you. You have to go through the website to do that. And so just real quick, something that I want to show everyone, if I can log in, is now that more clubs here in Utah are using this system, when you first log in, you may find that you have multiple clubs listed. You do have to update your contact information for each club, which is kind of annoying at times, but also makes a lot of sense if you think about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and go right here to the Utah VHF Society. The only reason why I'm doing that is because I'm just a normal member in that site, so I don't want to confuse everybody with all the extra options that come up. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that site. And this is how most people's website will look when you log into DCARC membership site. So you've got your profile, which we'll look at in a second. You can look at the club roster, the club calendar. You can send a message to the club leadership from here. We currently are not using the newsletter and communications link because our newsletter actually goes out to more than just club members. It goes out to interested parties throughout the county. So we're not using this one. If we update and upload any files that are very specific just to membership, we'll put it here. Otherwise, it'll be on the public site. We are not using attendance, but we are using skills. So the two things I wanted to show you in this system is first, manage your club profile. And this is all really cool. First off, this top information with your call sign, class, the FRN number, name, and address, those are all updated by the FCC database. So if your address isn't correct, reach out to one of us if you don't know how, and we can help you update your address in the FCC database. Your email address, you can update that. If it's published, that means members can see it. If you have it unpublished, that means nobody can see it. And then your telephone number, if you don't have one in here, please feel free to add it, and you can publish it so that the entire membership can see your telephone number, or you can make it private so just the leadership can see it. And there's all kinds of other great information here, right down to your membership, when you're active and when your membership comes due, and any transaction history that you have in your account, you'll see here. The Utah VHF Society doesn't allow for online payments, but our club does. So for your dues, so you can just add that right here and update and add membership time very easily using PayPal, and you do not have to have a PayPal account. We have the account, so you can go in as a guest, and it makes it really easy for you. So that is a really quick overview of the profile page. The other page that I want to show you that we actually use quite a bit. So I'm going to log into my the DCARC site real quick and pull myself up. Because we've got quite a few things here that we actually use as a club to help tailor information, and also to help keep track of things like your ARRL membership, because we are an ARRL affiliated club, so we have to keep a certain percentage to keep that affiliation status. So this is really good information for us to have. So under skills, membership skills, you can take a look. at what you've currently got assigned. Typically, we've got the ARRL member, or if you're a member of ARES and that kind of thing. We also have listed in here that it's your responsibility to keep up to date as any FEMA training that you've got. And if you're a VE at which group, ARRL or W5YI, is all there. Now, we're able to pull that information in a list and provide it to the people that are running these unique organizations or clubs when they're looking for help. And it really does help us to be able to figure out who's available. The other part that's really cool that you can add to your profile is all these Elmer areas. And if you want to be an Elmer in something else, let us know. We'll add the tag for you. So about a couple of times a month, I get an email through our public website asking for help with a different area of ham radio. I go immediately to our Ham Club online database and I do a search for that type of thing. And then I see if in that list, if there is a Elmer that is geographically close to the person that is requesting help. If I can get somebody close, I introduce them together via email, and away the help and the Elmering goes. If they're a little bit farther away, I reach out and make sure I can share telephone numbers or email addresses, and then we get them connected. The Elmer program is how we get help and interest in our hobby. So I would encourage you to go and take a look and see what you're good at or what you would like to be an Elmer in, and we would be happy to add you in here. You can add yourself just by going from the main club page over on the left-hand side. You just go to view and update your skills, and you just click the add button to add yourself to that skill level, and then you come up on that roster so that you're good to go. And as I get requests in for help, we try to share the load. And so that's what I've got on those two areas in our website. I'm happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to you, Greg.
So Larry, there was a question, how do you change the acquired dates on those Elmers in FEMA?
So at this point, you don't. The acquired date is the date that you've signed up for them. There is a request to the owner of Ham Club Online to make those editable dates, and it is on his change log. So as more clubs request that to be done, it comes up higher on the list. And when it does come available to us, which I anticipate will eventually, we'll let everybody know and they can put in custom dates in there.
Thanks, Larry. Anyone have any questions for Larry? Okay, let me show this real quick screen here.
This is Gary, DND.
Hi, Gary, DND.
I'd like to thank Larry for all the work he does. If it wasn't for Larry, my job would be a nightmare. But thank you, Larry, so much for all your help with the website and the PayPal and everything.
Absolutely. And hey, thank you, Gary. I really appreciate that. But this is my own belief. That's what our hobby is all about. We jump in with the things that we are good at or that we'd like to improve in, and then we improve the entire hobby as we go. And that's just what I count this as, is helping to improve the hobby.
Thank you both.
K6QJU.
K6QJU. Go ahead, Joan.
Could I have about 3 minutes to go over ARES? I see some new people on the list who might be interested.
Sure. Do you have something you need to show, or are you just going to talk about it?
I'll just talk.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. ARES stands for Amateur Radio Emergency Service, for those of you who aren't familiar with us. ARES volunteers provide communications for local agencies, government agencies, disaster relief organizations, public service events, parades, etc. We provide communications in emergencies and disasters, like we had a few weeks ago with the earthquake. And we also provide communications for training exercises. When we can, right? And we do train and we will resume that again once we can all socialize again. We train in message handling, communication technology, like digital communications. A lot of you do that. We also train in disaster preparedness. Next week, we are training in earthquake preparedness. If you want information on that, please email me at k6qju@arl.net. And I will be happy to show you what we're doing if you haven't already heard from me. Other than that, we always need help, in case you don't know. And Hurricane Katrina, amateur radio operators were literally the first responders. Everything was down, they got out their radios and went to town. So that's what we do. We always need help, and we'll be happy to train anyone in any area they need training in, besides our regular training. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, back to you, Greg.
KC7RF.
So go ahead, Hall.
Just a comment for Joan. I noticed the other day when we had our meeting with the staff that if she looked directly and talked directly in front of the computer, her audio was very good. If she turned her head away looking at something else, the audio dropped drastically. So she has a very directional mic on that speaker. So maybe next time Joan can look straight at the machine and really have good audio. This KC7RF, back to net.
Thank you, Hall. Joan, would you mind giving us your Aries generic email address if people need to get a hold of you?
Okay, aries.davis.co@gmail.com.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before I announce our two winners?
Greg, this is Dan, K1DJM.
Go ahead, Dan.
Just to follow up on what Joan was saying about Aries, I'm on the Syracuse City Disaster Preparedness Committee, and our annual emergency test is coming up this Saturday. So it's going to be a busy week for us between the shakeout and the Syracuse test. But Syracuse has recognized that Aries is an important partner in this emergency preparedness effort. And I was asked to contact Joan and get from her a list of all Aries members living within the city limits of Syracuse. And so you think of Aries and you say, okay, Aries is emergency preparedness and disasters and whatever, but most of what we do with Aries in Davis County is we support civic activities like the handcar parade, the Days of 47 parade, the Layton parade, and so on. But Aries is an emergency disaster preparedness effort, and some cities are starting to recognize that and take advantage of our skill set. Back to net.
Thank you, Dan. We appreciate that. Any other questions, comments before I announce the two winners for today?
This is Rick, W7VQ.
Go ahead, Rick.
There was a question on the chat to give Joan's email out one more time. What I would suggest, if Joan can get in and just send that as a chat message, then everybody can look at that while they're on the video.
Did you copy that, Joan?
Yes, I'll do it right now.
Perfect. And make sure you select everyone. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Again, we very much appreciate you joining us for our club meeting. These are certainly different times, ones that I don't think any of us have ever experienced, but we appreciate the fact that you took an hour of your day to join us on our club meeting. We have $25 gift certificates to our club store the next time we actually get to meet. And the two winners for today are, and I see that things have changed here on my chat list. So let me just scroll up here. So Mark Holden, K7SGI, you are a winner today. And Nicholas Abel, KG7EES. So again, that's Mark Holden, Kilo 7 Sierra Golf India, and Nicholas Abel, Kilo Golf 7 Echo Echo Sierra. We will get you those $25 certificates, and you will be more than welcome to use them the next time that you come to our, we certainly want you to keep coming to our club meetings, so you'll have to do that at the next available club store. And I see a yay from Nicholas. And again, we appreciate everybody who's joined us today. My apologies that we had to move our Skywarn. So the Storm Spotter Skywarn with Kevin Barjunbrick will be next club meeting. I suspect it'll again be a Zoom meeting, but we will see. And he will take the time on May 9th to present that. With that, I appreciate everybody joining us, and we will stop our recording. We'll make that available to club members, and we look forward to seeing everybody on the radio throughout the coming weeks. Thank you, everybody, for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.